Arnold Schwarzenegger's blueprint for success. I devoured every single article, every single book, every single documentary, and I basically created this beautiful blueprint with lessons that you can use in your own life. And yeah, wow, so much value. I'm so excited to share this with you guys. Before we hop into this, if you want this blueprint, just click the link in the description. If you want to read it in your own time, it's completely free. I don't want any money for it. Besides that, if you want my list of 100 history books that are about the greats from the past, so you can learn from them, including the book that I read about Arnold, just click the link in the description. Also completely free. I don't want any money for this. So yeah, now let's hop into this. So the first lesson I want to get into is study the greats and become greater. This is literally the motto of this YouTube channel. Study the greats and become greater. And the reason I added this lesson is because that's literally what Arnold did. He literally did what we are doing at this very moment. He studied and he replicated, he created something greater, and now he's got this amazing career behind him. I want to start off with watching this video of him and his idol, Reg Park.
Always on the front burner, though, was Arnold's ambition, which was on display in another sequence cut from the film. It's Arnold visiting with his idol, retired bodybuilding champ, Reg Park. Arnold was patterning his career after Park, who'd gone on to star in Hercules movies in the 60s.
I think what perhaps happened to me about 15, 20 years ago is happening to you right now.
I know, it's this incredible
The
thing.
parallel is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's like a repetition,
Yeah.
that's what it is.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I looked up to you so much right from the beginning.
He was a kid wanting to emulate what I'd done, so it was a great compliment to me, and I took it in that sense.
Yeah, I remember.
Patterning, you just heard replicating those terms, because that's literally what Arnold did. In his autobiography, he wrote, "From that point on," and this is when he found Reg Park in the magazine, "from that point on, my life was utterly dominated by Reg Park. His image was my ideal. It was fixed indelibly in my mind. I found out everything I could about Reg Park. I bought all the magazines that published his programs. I learned how he started training, what he ate, how he lived, and how he did his workouts. I became obsessed with Reg Park. He was the image in front of me from the time I started training. The more I focused it on this image and worked and grew, the more I saw it was real and possible for me to live like him." Then eventually at 19, he meets Reg Park, and you see how absolutely humongous Arnold is. He's 19 in this picture. It's absolutely incredible. Arnold said, "Reg also taught me a key lesson about psychological limits. I'd work my way up to 300 pounds of weight in calf rises beyond any other bodybuilder I knew. I thought I must be near the limit of human achievement. So I was amazed to see Reg Park doing calf races with 1,000 pounds. That's 3 times as much, even more than 3 times. And this is a clear example of when you have this group of people around you that aren't necessarily better than you, you don't see a clear example of someone being able to do that. It was the same with that. There was this certain record or something with like these marathon runners. One person was able to break the record, and then suddenly everyone was able to do it. That's the same with this Arnold situation. The limit is in your mind, Reg said. Think about it. 300 pounds is less than walking. You weigh 250, so you're lifting 250 pounds with each calf every time you take a step. To really train, you have to go beyond that." And he was right. The limit I thought existed was purely psychological. Now that I'd seen someone doing 1,000 pounds, I started making leaps in my training. Again, now that I'd seen someone doing 1,000 pounds, I started making leaps in my training. He saw it, and that's why he knew it was possible. That psychological barrier just disappeared because someone did it in front of him. So yeah, we talked about how you can replicate these grades and how you can basically implement that into your own life, study their routines, their morning routines, their eating habits, their training schedules, whatever. But also, one interesting thing what you can do is you can ask yourself this question: what would do? Arnold had this operation. It was quite a heavy operation. It was a complex thigh surgery, and this happened like before his second inauguration, when he became governor for the second time. And this is what he wrote in his book. Teddy Roosevelt, of course, once got shot by a would-be assassin while making a speech and calmly finished his remarks before seeing a doctor. I wondered how he pulled that off. This is a shirt from Theodore Roosevelt. I was preparing for my speech as best as I could, but as the date drew closer, Maria assessed the severity of my condition. Finally, she said, "This is not going to happen." Maria is, by the way, his wife. Then he said, "The next morning I was fuming at myself. I had visits with my injured soldiers at Walter Reed Army Medical Center, veterans who had been operated on the day before. They wanted to heal, get back to the battlefield, and continue to fight. I thought to myself, those guys want to go back into battle, but I want to cancel a speech? I felt like a total wimp. I had to go forward with the inaugural, even if I had to crawl on all fours up to the steps of the Capitol. I called Maria and told her we had to resume our original plans. She recognized that I was in machine mode, and that no one was going to stop me, and she went all out to make the inauguration a success." So he basically saw like what would do. Well, what would Roosevelt do in this operation situation? He would have gone to the speech. I mean, Roosevelt went to the speech even with a bullet in his body. So how can you apply this into your own life? Super simple. You pick someone who has already done what you want to do, then you gotta gather everything you can about them. And this is, again, I don't want to plug myself too often, but my list of 100 history books is very useful in this, because there's so many great books about certain figures. So if you need inspiration to find an idol that you can replicate, the list is there. It's completely free, link in bio. Then you reverse engineer their part. You ask yourself these questions like, what were their reps, their failures, their routines? Exactly the same thing Arnold did, of course, when wondering what was Reg's workout routine. And then you visualize, how would ... handle my exact situation. Okay. Then let's get into the next lesson, and that is reinventing yourself. And this is arguably my favorite lesson, because this is just incredible. How is this even possible? You are born as a young, poor Austrian farm boy in the middle of nowhere. You become the best bodybuilder of all time, yeah? And then you not only become the best bodybuilder of all time, you also become one of the greatest Hollywood action actors of all time. You make over $500 million in salary. And then you think, oh, that's quite a successful career. But no, that's not all. As an Austrian boy, you become a governor of California. How is that even a thing? You're born in Austria as a farm boy, you become the governor of the wealthiest state in America. To me, that's just incredible. And the reason he was able to do this is because he was able to reinvent himself. He was okay with starting from zero. He was okay with putting his ego on the side. And that's what we're going to talk about now. So how was he able to reinvent himself? So how do you reinvent yourself like Arnold? You acknowledge it's time, you drop your ego, start as a beginner again, you commit fully to the new identity, and then you use the old you as fuel. But before we get into that, here's one quote from Arnold about reinventing himself. He said, "It's human nature to work on the things that we are good at. If you have big biceps, you want to do an endless number of curls because it's so satisfying to see this major bicep flex. To be successful, however, you must be brutal with yourself and focus on the flaws. That's when your eye, your honesty, and your ability to listen to others comes in." He had to completely let that ego go. That ego of like, oh, I love doing this endless amount of bicep curls. Because if he did an endless amount of bicep curls, he would never have become governor. He had to start completely from zero. Okay. The first thing, acknowledge it's time. This is what Arnold said in his book. He said, "I loved being the champ. But how much more was there to prove after winning Mr. Olympia 4 straight years? Plus, my businesses were growing, and maybe I had the start of a movie career. As we trained for New York, I made up my mind that this Mr. Olympia would be my last. I like the idea of staying hungry in life and never staying in one place. When I was 10, I wanted to be good enough at something to be recognized in the world. Now, I wanted to be good enough at something else to be recognized again and even bigger than before." Then the second thing is drop your ego, start as a beginner. This is arguably the most difficult one, and this is also one like I can relate to heavily, as I was an elite gymnast as a child, and now this whole YouTube thing, like I'm starting from scratch again. Like I've zero experience with the YouTube thing. I had to put my ego aside, and be amateur again. So I hope you guys are enjoying this amateur show. They both said the same thing. This is what Arnold said in his book. They both said the same thing. There were too many obstacles. "Look, you have an accent that scares people," said the guy from ICM. "You have a body that's too big for movies. You have a name that wouldn't even fit on a movie poster. Everything about you is strange." But Ravelson had warned me that changing careers will be tough. That's, I think, his manager or his lawyer. "In this world, I wasn't number one in the universe. I was just another aspiring actor." He was right. I had to surrender my pride and tell myself, "Okay, you're starting again. You're nothing here. You're just a beginner. You're just a little punk around these other actors." Okay, commit to the new identity. He pointed out that if I got elected, I have to forego 2 movies a year at 20 million or more each, plus spend millions of my own money, personal expenses that would not be tax deductible. If it wasn't a stretch to say that the total cost to me over 2 terms could be more than $200 million. So basically, from him turning from actor to governor, if he were to succeed, would cost him over $200 million. And this is not even with a guarantee that you would succeed as governor, because I mean, no one. He was kind of a meme. You could see it as like the Donald Trump becoming president. No one really believed that Donald Trump would actually get elected. The same with Arnold. He had never spent any day in some type of office before, government office. So for him to actually be chosen was quite remarkable and unexpected. But yeah, this whole 200 million thing is definitely, this shows he wasn't just dabbling in politics, he was all the way fucking in. Okay, use the audio as fuel. I was making my size, accent, and funny name into pure peculiarities that put people off. Definitely butchered that word. Before long enough, people were able to recognize me without seeing me, just by the name or by the sound of my voice. I mean, you just heard the German accent. That you can't forget that. It stands out, especially in in the Hollywood market. So he turned his problems in his uniqueness into signature brands. He didn't try to change his name into an American name. People actually came up with that idea, like maybe you should create like a stage name, but he didn't. And I think that actually did help him eventually in the long run, because a name like Arnold, you just don't forget it. Learn the money game. This is the next lesson that I want to talk about, and this is fascinating because there's just so many actors, singers, artists, whatever, who become really great at their work, but they leave the money game. They're not really focused on the money game. And like recently, I've been seeing these headlines of like Justin Bieber going broke, and I'm just wondering, like, if Justin Bieber were just to sit down with Arnold Schwarzenegger, that would just be incredibly helpful. Like, Arnold could prevent this whole Justin Bieber going broke thing for sure, because he understood. He understood that you can't be dependent on your salary, and Justin Bieber is dependent on his salary. Like, he needs to perform to make money, especially now because he sold his music. But that's okay, different story. So there are three key things about Arnold's money mindset, and that is: get educated, frugality, so you can invest more, and be extremely fucking valuable. Okay, get educated. The first one, he starts off as this Austrian boy with no education, and his parents never taught him about money either, because they were in survival mode. They were not in investment mode. So Arnold said, no matter what you do in life, you have to have a business mind and educate yourself about money. You can't just delegate it to a manager and tell him half has to stay locked in investment so that we can pay the taxes, and I'll keep the other half. My goal was to get rich and stay rich. My own father gave me advice about being disciplined, tough, and brave, but no advice on how to succeed in business. So what does Arnold do? He finds a mentor. I was always searching for mentors who could pick up where my father left off. Incredible advice. Having Joe around was like having a father who appreciated what I was doing. Over the next 2 or 3 years, I did research. Every day I would look at the real estate section in the newspaper, studying the prices and reading the stories and ads. I didn't mention it in his blueprint, but he also went back to school. He did all these courses, business courses, not only for business, but also he did courses for his language. He did even the accent lessons. So he was very dedicated to getting educated in multiple fields. He also did the same with politics. We're actually going to get into that later in this video. Next one is frugality, so you can invest more. And this is the exact same lesson that we stumble across every single time. In the last video we did about Sam Walton, the founder of Walmart. He had the exact same mentality. Extreme frugality was a superpower to him. He even implemented like this gamification in Walmart, where employees could get bonuses if they found ways where Walmart could save money. Definitely, you see this with all these grades, extreme frugality. And what Arnold said about buying clothes is so true. He said, every dollar should be invested to turn into $2 or $3 and make me financially secure. With clothes, the money was gone. Great insight. And this is about his girlfriend. At the time, there's no about his wife, or former wife, because they just divorced. Well, not just, I think it's like 10 years ago, but okay. She was totally on board with my habit of saving every penny. We had barbecues in the backyard and spent days on the beach instead of going someplace fancy. And that's what you need. You need a partner who understands your goals and is willing to sacrifice with you. I always felt that the most important thing was not how much you make, but how much you invest. Justin Bieber, pay attention. How much I'm sorry, I need to stop roasting Justin Bieber, but okay. He said, I'll start again. I always felt that the most important thing was not how much you make, but how much you invest, how much you keep. I never wanted to join the long list of famous entertainers and athletes who wiped out financially. Okay, very great advice and incredibly true. You see these stories all the time of entertainers going broke. The third one, and this is so valuable, and that's the lesson: be valuable. But this lesson in itself is extremely valuable, because I see this quite often, even with myself. I often forget that if you want to be valued, you need to be valuable. And notice sounds quite stupid, but if you want to hire your price, for instance, with your services or maybe your product, you need to deliver more value. And in order to deliver more value, or at least to, I think also one of the most important things is that you can show that you're delivering value, so you can show results. And that's what Arnold did with his movies, and that's what we're going to get into right now. Because most actors didn't do this, and because they didn't do this, they didn't get paid like Arnold did. He said, in Hollywood, you get paid for how much you can bring in. What is the return on investment? The reason I could double my ask was the worldwide grosses. I nurtured the foreign markets. Was always asking, is this movie appealing to an international audience? For example, the Asian market is negative on facial hair, so why would I wear a beard in this role? Do I really want to forego all that money? You understood, because Arnold is a European, so he's not like all those Americans who think America is the only country in the world. There's this famous Russ lyric where he says, "The World Cup is bigger than the Super Bowl," and that's incredibly true. And this is what Arnold understood: that if you're able to infiltrate these foreign markets with these American movies, then Hollywood will pay you so much more money, because you're a worldwide superstar, not just an American superstar. And this is something most of those actors didn't even think about, because they were in their own bubble. They thought America was the only country in the world, and still most of these actors think that. And they're missing incredible opportunities because of it. Arnold said in his book, whenever I finished filming a movie, I felt my job was only half done. Every film had to be nurtured in the marketplace. You can have the greatest movie in the world, but if you don't get it out there, if people don't know about it, you have nothing. It's the same with poetry, with paintings, with writing, with inventions. It always blew my mind that some of the greatest artists, from Michelangelo to Van Gogh, never sold much because they didn't know how. Incredibly true. And I think you can always like package this in whatever industry you are. So for example, for me, it will be like the YouTube, for this YouTube video. It doesn't matter how valuable this YouTube video is, if no one clicks on it, it's not valuable, because no one has seen it. So I have to make an incredible thumbnail, incredible title, incredible SEO description, and a lot of artists, and I'd say mostly artists don't really understand this. So what was the goal for Arnold? Well, the goal for Arnold was to basically double his salary for every single movie. He wrote that my plan was always to double my salary with each new film. Not that it always worked, but most of the time it did. So I basically worked out how much he earned per movie, and I started from his first biggest role up to until, what was it, 1994. And he started, his first lead role was Conan the Barbarian, where he earned 250,000. This is 1982, okay? And this rise is just incredible. Like, I love to see this. This, you can see just the hard work paying off. So then he does a Terminator, which is 750,000. Then he does Conan the Destroyer, 1 million, his first 1 million movie. Then he does Commando in 1985, which is 1.5 million. Then he does Predator in 1987, which is 3 million, so he doubles it. Then The Running Man in the same year as the Predator is 5 million. And then he does Red Heat in 1988, which is 5 million again. Then he does Total Recall in 1990, which is 10 million. So he doubles it again. Then he does Terminator 2 for 14 million. And remember, Terminator 1 he did for 750,000. Terminator 2 he does for 14 million. And then True Lies in 1994 he does for 15 million. So you went from Conan the Barbarian in 1982, that's 250,000, and then you've got True Lies in 1994 for 15 million. So that's a 12-year difference. So in 12 years, his movie salary went from 250,000 to 15 million per movie. So yeah, how did he make himself worth this amount of salary? Well, of course, there are so many reasons, but one of them is he wrote in his book, I visualize an inventory of all the different countries in my mind's eye, a little like the Terminator's list of possible appropriate responses. In that flophouse scene, how will this play in Germany? I'd ask myself. Will they get it in Japan? How will this play in Canada? How will this play in Spain? How about the Middle East? In most cases, my movie sold even better abroad than in the United States. So he was really well connected to the sales side of the movies, and I think that's why one of the reasons why he was able to double his salary that often is because he was so connected with the sales side of it. He was seen as this actor who would go all the way in order to make sure that the movie would be successful. To him, the movie didn't end after filming. The movie only ended after all the marketing and everything about the promotion was done. So that eventually became a part of his image, and directors respected that, and directors saw the value in that, obviously. The next lesson I want to get into is have a clear vision plus goals, and this is the one where what he talks about the most in his latest book, which I didn't necessarily enjoy too much. It kind of felt like a self-help book too much. If you guys want to read just one book, by the way, about from Arnold, I'd just read his Total Recall book, which is a biography that he wrote 10 years ago. And if you want to read a second book, I would read the one I forgot the name, but it's a biography he wrote when he was around 30 years old, and it's like half biography and half about his training schedule. It's a very short book. Definitely recommend those two. But he talks a lot about having a clear vision plus goal. And this is what he said. He said, when I fell in love with bodybuilding, I didn't have vague hopes of becoming a champion. I had a very specific vision of it. I could see myself on the step of the podium holding the winner's trophy. I could see the other competitors on the lower steps looking up at me enviously, but also in awe. This wasn't a fantasy. This was a memory that just didn't happen yet. I had this video that I really wanted to show you guys.
There was not one single minute that I wasted. And this is why I'm standing here today. With the age of 20, I went to London and I won the Mr. Universe contest as the youngest Mr. Universe ever. And it was because I had a goal. You see, if you don't have a vision of where you go, and if you don't have a goal where you go, you drift around and you never end up anywhere. 74% hate their job in America. The majority of people don't like what they're doing because they're really not doing it because they didn't have a goal and they followed this goal. They just aimlessly drift around, and then all of a sudden there's a job opening, so they get that job. Because you have to work. But then when you work, it's a chore. It's work. It's not fun. So if you think about, only a quarter of the people really enjoy what they're doing in life. So people always ask me, when they saw me in the gym in the pumping iron days, they say, why is it that you're working out so hard? 5 hours a day, 6 hours a day, and you have always a smile on your face. The others are working out just as hard as you do, and they look sour in the face. Why is that? And I told people all the time, I said, because to me, I'm shooting for a goal. In front of me is the Mr. Universe title. So every rep that I do gets me closer to accomplishing that goal, to make this goal, this vision, turn into reality. Every single set that I do, every repetition, every weight that I lift will get me a step closer to turn this goal into reality. So I couldn't wait to do another 500-pound squat. I couldn't wait to do another 500-pound bench press. I couldn't wait to do another 2,000 reps of sit-ups. I couldn't wait for the next exercise. So let me tell you something, visualizing your goal and going after it makes it fun. You got to have a purpose no matter what you do in life. You got to have a purpose.
I hope that wasn't too long. What he just said is very important. Like, you have to have a purpose and you have to have a clear goal. You got to be able to visualize it, imagine it, feel it, close your eyes, and all do all that. How Arnold used vision and goals. So, three things: see it vividly, write it down, break it down, and measure progress relentlessly. See it vividly. The first one is Arnold didn't just set goals, he built a mental movie around them. He made his future feel so real, it was like he'd already lived it. This is what he said here, right? He said, when I fell in love with bodybuilding, I didn't have a vague hope of becoming a champion. I had a very specific vision of it. I could see myself on the step of the podium holding the winner's trophy. He could see himself. He had this mental movie in his head. This made every rep, every risk, every sacrifice feel worth it because the destination was clear. And he just said in the video, remember, every time he did a rep, it never felt like a chore because the rep got him closer to his goal. So he really reminded himself of that goal quite often. And I think that definitely helped him to not be pissed off at being in a fucking gym 4 hours a day, because I can imagine that can get annoying eventually. And I think this is a clear example of how extremely focused and dedicated he was to just that one goal, because that's often the hardest thing, is not switching goals. That's the biggest problem that most people have, is they want to switch goals every single fucking time. And that's what Arnold was so good at not doing. And this is a clear example story. He turned down $200,000. So the same with the offer I received in the early 70s to manage a leading gymnasium chain for $200,000 a year. It was a lot of money, but I turned it down because it would not take me where I wanted to go. He had that clear vision. Managing a chain is a 10 to 12 hour day job, and that would not make me a bodybuilding champion or get me into movies. Nothing was going to distract me from my goal. No offer, no relationship, no nothing. Clear goal. Anything that isn't that goal is a clear distraction. And in his book, he is very, very open about this, that even family to him was a distraction, because when he was with his parents, they didn't even have anything to really talk about, have great conversations, and they just ask the same fucking question every single time. Arnold, why are you doing this? Why aren't you going to school? Whatever. So to him, even family was a distraction, he said. He's a very intense guy. So the second one is write it down, break it down. It wasn't enough to just say I wanted to lose weight or study English. I used index cards and listed every target with numbers and deadlines, Arnold said. And this is what Arnold actually wrote in his book. This is what his index cards used to look like. So, for example, get 12 more units in college, earn enough money to save $5,000. Isn't that just incredible? Writing this down and then later making, what was it? 15 million in a movie. I just love that. Work out 5 hours a day. So he did one in the morning, one in the afternoon, evening. And then he did gain 7 pounds of solid muscle weights, and find an apartment building to buy and move into. It seemed, and this is very important, it might seem like I was handcuffing myself by setting such specific goals, but it was actually just the opposite. I found it liberating. And the reason I suspect why I think he found it liberating is because if you have such a clear goal, then it's so easy to say no to things, because it's very easy to filter out what you don't need in life. If you have a very clear goal, then whatever comes your way that doesn't align with that goal obviously isn't meant for you. So I think that's what he means with saying that he found it very liberating. It relieves you of a lot of burden and stress. Another thing is measure progress relentlessly. And this story is fascinating. So basically, he hired this photographer once a month, and Arnold would hire this photographer to take pictures of his body. And after the photographer took the pictures, he would analyze those pictures with a magnifying glass. That's how dedicated he was to building the perfect body and becoming the greatest bodybuilder of all time. He really saw bodybuilding as an art. And he also once mentioned that it was kind of like a artist making a statue, and he's basically like he's chipping off the body, like Michelangelo making the body, like he's chipping things off to make it like perfect. And while an artist does this in a couple months, Arnold, it took years. And those are his words. So yeah, he really measured the progress relentlessly, and I thought that the photographer story is just incredible. It just shows how dedicated he was, especially because he's broke. Need I to remind you, he's broke while doing this. So a photographer was probably the last of his pennies of the month after paying rent. Okay, so the next lesson is care about the details. Arnold wrote, on the Terminator, it was becoming a machine blindfolding myself until I could do every gun stunt with my eyes closed and shooting so many rounds at the range that I no longer blinked when my gun got fired. So Arnold was so obsessed with the details that he wanted really people to think that he was a robot, the Terminator. Like, he really wanted people to believe the role he was playing. He also wrote that on Terminator 2, it was practicing the shotgun cocking flip so many times my knuckles bled for what amounted to 2 seconds of screen time. 2 seconds of screen time, but such an immense caring about the details. I'll show you the video. So smooth. You can see that he really worked at it, because that was incredibly smooth. Arnold also wrote, our biggest disagreement was about "I'll be back." That's the legendary phrase, of course. That, of course, is the line you hear the Terminator say before it destroys the police station. The scene took a long time to shoot because I was arguing for "I will be back." I felt that the line would sound more machine-like and more menacing without the contraction. It's feminine when I say the "oh," I complained, repeating it for Jim so he could hear the program. "Oh, oh, oh." It doesn't feel rugged to me. He looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Let's stick with "oh," he said, but I wasn't ready to let go, and we went back and forth. The extreme obsession for details with Arnold, that they're just arguing for hours and hours upon end about the "I'll be back." And I mean, it is an iconic line, but still, that's just so funny to me. And then also Mick with the cooking flip on the shotgun. Just the care about the details is incredible. And all this just reminded me of Napoleon, because this is exactly what Napoleon did too. He had an extreme obsession with details, and his philosophy on that his quote on that is, I mean, I understand it too, because in a sense it is true what I'm going to say right now. He said, all greater fans hang by a single thread. The clever man takes advantage of everything, neglects nothing that may give him some added opportunity. The less clever man, by neglecting one thing, sometimes misses everything. Because how does this relate? Imagine if Arnold didn't do a great job in the scene of "I'll be back," and it would never have become this iconic scene. Imagine how less iconic the Terminator will be. Now, if people say Arnold, you instantly say "I'll be back." That's such an iconic line now. So, yeah, what Napoleon said, that by neglecting one thing, by neglecting one thing sometimes misses everything. And then Andrew Roberts also said, Napoleon roamed the ground near Austerlitz, stopping over elevated points, inspecting lakes, hills, and terrain faults, then declared, examine this ground carefully. It's going to be a battlefield, and you will have a part to play upon it. So there's extreme dedication to details. And then there's his last quote from Arnold himself, again, where it just shows this intense curiosity for details. He said, after any competition, I always sought out the judges to ask for their input. I appreciate that I won, but please tell me, what were my weak points and what were my strong points, I'd say. Okay, let's get into the next lesson. That is, always be selling. And we just softly touched this when we talk about the movies, that he had this great understanding of sales and marketing and whatever. But yeah, always be selling. So this is basically what Mr. Olympia, the event, looked like when Arnold was in it, and this is right now. Like, they literally do it in stadiums, and a part of that is because Arnold had this great understanding of selling. Being outrageous is a way to succeed. Bodybuilding was a nowhere sport when I was Mr. Olympia. We were struggling to get media coverage, so I started telling reporters that pumping up your muscles was better than coming. It was a crazy statement, but it made news. And I wanted to show you guys the video.
The greatest feeling you can get in a gym, or the most satisfying feeling you can get in the gym, is the pump. Let's say you train your biceps. Blood is rushing into your muscles, and that's what we call the pump. Your muscles get a really tight feeling, like your skin is going to explode any minute. You know, it's really tight. It's like somebody blowing air into your muscle. It just blows up, and it feels different. It feels fantastic. It's as satisfying to me as coming is, you know, as having sex with a woman and coming. So can you believe how much I am in heaven? I'm like getting the feeling of coming in the gym. I'm getting the feeling of coming at home. I'm getting the feeling of coming backstage when I pump up, when I pose out in front of 5,000 people. I get the same feeling. So I'm coming day and night. I mean, it's terrific, right? So, you know, I'm in heaven.
So one of the ways that he was able to get media coverage by saying these outrageous things, but he also did outrageous things, like going shirtless on the street. And basically, I'll read what he said himself. If we had asked the newspapers to write a story about me winning Mr. Olympia, they'd have thought we were nuts. Instead, he had me walk around the city on a freezing day in my posing briefs. Then he called some of his newspaper friends and said, "You remember Schwarzenegger, who won the stone lifting contest? Well, now he's Mr. Universe, and he's at Starhus Square in his underwear." And this is actually Arnold with his grannies. A couple of editors thought that was funny enough to send photographers. I led them all over the city, from the market to the Haupt, some German city, where I made a point of chatting up little old ladies to show I was friendly and nice and not some kind of monster. This is what politicians do all the time, but it is very unusual for a bodybuilder. In spite of the cold, I was having fun. See, he really understood how to get people's attention. Then let's get into the next lesson. Extreme repetition. And this is definitely one of the foundations of the whole Arnold Schwarzenegger mindset, is you gotta fucking work hard. Like, he worked incredibly hard. He said, "From the bodybuilding days on, I learned that everything is reps and mileage. The more miles you ski, the better a skier you become. The more reps you do, the better your body. I'm a big believer in hard work, grinding it out and not stopping until it's done." Then the next thing Arnold said, he said, I trained 5 hours a day for 15 years. I invented the double split. 2.5 hours in the morning and 2.5 hours in the evening. On my heaviest days, I was moving 40,000 pounds of weight per workout. Incredible. So yeah, what he learned from bodybuilding, he basically brought into becoming a politician, and that is why Arnold is so important to study, because if he was able to turn his lessons from bodybuilding into becoming a politician, then you can turn these lessons from bodybuilding into becoming an entrepreneur or becoming whatever you aspire to become. He started off as a politician with zero experience when he was governor. He didn't do any time in office before that. He only had a bit of experience in being in these political circles because he was married to Mariah Shriver back in the day. And Mariah Shriver was a cousin of John F. Kennedy. And you can imagine if you're married to a Shriver slash Kennedy, you're going to have a lot of these political conversations. And Arnold is a Republican, of course, and John F. Kennedy is a famous Democrat. So there was still a difference, but I think he definitely learned a lot from those conversations with his new family. Arnold said, I turned my 5-hour training block into an immersion program for the language of politics and government. And this is basically when he got when he was running for governor, he had to obviously learn about politics in the first place. I studied like a foreign exchange student, learning a new language, reviewing notes daily and speaking from memory until the words came naturally. So he had to learn about all this foreign politics, diplomatic polities, all that. He had to learn from scratch. So he basically created this governor's classroom in his home. He invited experts over each day and built fluency through repeated practice. And it's exactly the same as he had done with bodybuilding back in the day. And also with acting, so he did like 20 reads per script and a Terminator gun flip, obviously, and then bodybuilding reps of 40,000 pounds a day. And yeah, basically, so like for foreign policy information, he let some ambassador come over to his house and they talked for hours and hours, and he'd invite all these political professors, and he really built his own school. And then there's this last quote from Arnold. He said, my definition of living is to have excitement always. That's the difference between living and existing. Later, when I learned about the Terminator, I loved the idea that he was a machine that never had to sleep. I said to myself, imagine what an advantage that would be to have those extra 6 hours every day for something else. Imagine you could study a whole new profession. You could learn an instrument. That would be unbelievable. Because for me, the question was always how to fit in all the stuff that I wanted to do. I just love that mindset of like, most people have this idea of like, oh, how do I get through the day? I have to another day of work, And he's like, no, I wish the days were longer. Imagine if the days were longer. Imagine if I didn't have to sleep. Imagine how much work I could do. It's a whole different mindset. Okay, the last lesson is forget plan B. Burn the motherfucking ships. Okay, first let's get into this quick video that I have for you guys. I hope you guys even enjoy this video. Like, please let me know if it's annoying or not if I implement these videos of the person that we're studying talking, like speeches or interviews or whatever. But yeah, let me know if you guys in the comments like this or not. And if you don't like it, I'll stop showing it.
I hate plan B. And I tell you why. Because we have so many doubters, as I've said earlier, the no-sayers. We have so many of those people that say no, and you can't do it, that's impossible. That is okay, because we just turn off, as I said earlier, and we listen and we hear the no being a yes. You can't do it, you can do it, and all of that. So that is possible to do that amongst all the negative people around you. But when you start doubting yourself, that's very dangerous. Because now what you're basically saying is that if my plan doesn't work, I have a fallback plan. I have a plan B. And that means that you start thinking about plan B, and every thought that you put into plan B, you're taking away now that thought and that energy from plan A. And it's very important to understand that we function better if there is no safety net, because plan B becomes a safety net. It says that if I fail, then I fall and I get picked up and I have something else there that will protect me. And that's not good.
What Arnold says is incredibly valuable, and this is something people have understood through history, especially military leaders. We did the exact same thing. They burnt the fucking boats. You had Herman Cortez. He was a Spanish conqueror. He landed in Mexico. He wanted to steal this treasure, and this treasure hadn't been stolen for 600 years. For 600 years, no one was able to do it. So you can imagine, the soldiers are of course hyped, they want to try, but they also know that there is a chance they might not succeed, as people haven't been able to do it for 600 years. So what does he do? He tells his men to look back as he burns the boats. He burns the boats with which they travel to Mexico, so they don't have a choice. Cortes explained that the men were either going to take the treasure and return home in the Aztec boats, or they were going to die. They were going to die, or they were going to succeed. So now the choice wasn't there anymore. Arnold mirrors this exact same thing in every single pivot in his career. No failback when he left Austria, no backup if acting failed, and no safety net when entering politics. He completely stops filming movies. He completely stops bodybuilding. When he goes into acting, he really goes all the way in. And this is the last quote that I want to end this video with. Arnold looking hella sexy. Arnold said, "Once you know plan B is there, it becomes so easy to take it whenever things get difficult. The second you create a backup plan, you are giving a voice to the naysayers." Incredible advice. I hope everyone enjoyed this video. If you want to see more videos like this, please leave a like and subscribe. If you want to get this template, if you want to get this roadmap, you can download it for free. Link is in the description. Thank you. This took me a lot of time, and this was incredibly valuable for my own life. So I hope it is as incredible for you in your life. Thank you.